one of the most famous dates in military history, D-Day, June 6, 1944. One paratrooper who took part in this epic battle was a Holyoke native and Franciscan chaplain. Steve Kiltonic now has more on the heroic life story of Father Ignatius Matternowski.
D-Day, June 6, 1944. Allied forces land on the beaches of Normandy, France, and begin the long march to Germany. It was to be the turning point of World War II and the beginning of the end for Hitler and the Nazis. In the early morning hours of that fateful day, American paratroopers jumped into the dark of night and land behind enemy lines. One of the paratroopers was Father Ignatius Matternowski, who served as chaplain of the 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment. According to Father James McCurry, Matternowski grew up in Holyoke, the proud son of Polish immigrants. His family worshipped at Mater Dolorosa Parish, and Francis, his baptismal name, was a star basketball player at Mater Dolorosa School and later at St. Francis High in Athol Springs, New York, which he attended to become a priest.
He had an innocence about him. We would call it a humility, a holiness. Humanly speaking, he had a bit of a naivete about him that many noticed. He was also a gifted preacher.
As a seminarian, Matternowski returned to St. Hyacinth in Granby before being ordained to the priesthood in 1938 by Springfield Bishop Thomas O'Leary. But when war broke out, Matternowski was one of the first Franciscans to volunteer to become a military chaplain.
He was inspired by the patriotism of the fatherland, for God and fatherland was a very common phrase used by the Polish immigrants here in Holyoke. So with that sense of Polish patriotism and American patriotism and zeal for souls, he didn't really hesitate a minute.
Father Matternowski enlisted in 1942 and did his basic training in the U.S., attaining the rank of captain. In 1943, he was deployed to England to train for the invasion of Europe. Before dawn broke on June 6, 1944, Father Matternowski parachuted with his troops into the hamlet of Gertville in the town of Picoville. An American glider crashed nearby, and there were many casualties. Father Ignatius, who landed safely, began to minister to the injured and dead paratroopers. He set up a safe house for the wounded in a cafe grocery shop.
He also noted that there were some wounded Nazi German soldiers, and here's the Franciscan idealism of the man, the peacemaker. He had this inspired notion, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could set up one common medical facility for the wounded of both sides, and in his own way try to make peace and reconciliation. So he took off his helmet, fastened it to his waistband. He left his gun behind, made sure that his Red Cross band was around his arm, and his chaplain's cross was on his collar.
Father Matternowski walked down the street and met up with the chief German medic, a Nazi major. After conversing, he showed him the wounded Americans.
Shortly after he turned around and started walking back, he was hit by Nazi sniper fire and shot dead. He fell against a wall, and that wall is his death site where his body would lay for 3 more days before the Nazis allowed the Americans to remove it. Who shot the gun? We don't know.
Soldiers from the 90th Infantry Division retrieved Father Matternowski's body and buried him near Utah Beach. Matternowski, who received the Purple Heart, was the only U.S. chaplain to be killed on D-Day and the only Franciscan chaplain to die in the war. He was 32. In 1948, Matternowski's remains were returned and his body was given a proper burial in Mater Dolorosa Cemetery. Today, Father Matternowski is remembered at Arlington National Cemetery on the Chaplain's Hill Monument. In France, by a special monument in the town and site where he was shot. In Granby, where he attended St. Hyacinth, he is honored with a plaque honoring all Franciscans. Across from the former Mater Dolorosa Church is Kosciuszko Park. Father Matternowski is at the top of the Veterans Monument list. Father Matternowski's date of death was originally reported as June 13th because it took 7 days to claim and then bury his body. On November 3rd, a memorial service was held here at Mater Dolorosa Cemetery to honor Father Matternowski. During the ceremony, Father McCurry dedicated a new monument on which was etched, after a nearly 70-year wait, the actual day of death, June 6, 1944, D-Day.
Let us pray. O God, by whose mercy the faithful departed find rest, bless this gravestone.
At the memorial, a large crowd, including many veterans, gathered to hear Father McCurry tell Father Matternowski's life story. After Father McCurry unveiled the new monument and then blessed it, Polish hymns were sung. And wreaths were placed on each side of the headstone.
In the Franciscan Book of Memories, it is written of Father Ignatius. He was an exemplary priest, a dynamic preacher, but most of all, he was truly an apostle and friend of the soldiers entrusted to his spiritual care. May he rest in peace. God bless America.
For Real to Real, I'm Steve Kiltonic.